In the far reaches of the galaxy, humanity had spread its wings, colonizing countless worlds and establishing a vast interstellar empire. For centuries, they had known relative peace, their dominion unchallenged. But that tranquility was shattered when the Zorgans, a fierce and warlike alien race, launched a sudden and devastating attack on the human colonies. The Zorgans struck without warning or provocation, their ships descending upon human worlds like a swarm of locusts. They bombarded cities from orbit, reducing them to rubble, and unleashed ground troops to slaughter any survivors. Millions perished in the initial onslaught, and those who remained were left to flee or fight against the overwhelming might of the invaders. News of the attack spread like wildfire, igniting a fury in the hearts of humanity that had not been seen in generations. The people cried out for blood, for vengeance against those who had so callously shattered the peace. Leading the charge was Admiral James Knox, a battle-hardened veteran and commander of Earth's space fleet. Knox stood before the Earth Council, his eyes blazing with determination. "The Zorgans have awakened a sleeping giant," he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "They think us weak, complacent after centuries of peace. But they have forgotten the resolve that carried us to the stars. They have forgotten the fury of the human spirit when roused to anger. We will remind them of their folly, and we will make them pay for every drop of human blood they have spilled." With the backing of the Council, Knox set about assembling a mighty armada, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. He called upon every ship, every soldier, every resource at humanity's disposal. From the shipyards of Earth and the factories of 100 worlds, a tide of steel and fire poured forth, ready to carry the fight to the enemy. As Knox readied his forces, the scattered survivors of the Zorgan assault fought for their lives on the besieged colony worlds. On the planet New Terra, soldier Jack Willis and medic Anna Flores had watched in horror as the invaders descended upon their home. They had seen friends and loved ones cut down by Zorgan blades, had watched their city burn under alien guns. Now, they fought to survive amidst the ruins, scavenging for food and shelter, ever wary of Zorgan patrols. They banded together with other survivors, forging bonds of camaraderie in the crucible of war. Among them was a grizzled veteran known only as Sarge, his face etched with scars and his eyes haunted by the ghosts of battles past. Under Sarge's gruff tutelage, Jack and Anna learned to fight, to ambush Zorgan squads and raid their supplies. They struck from the shadows, a guerrilla force that harried the invaders at every turn. In the darkest hours, it was the hope of rescue, of deliverance by Knox's fleet, that kept them going. That deliverance came sooner than expected. Knox's armada, 1,000 ships strong, fell upon the Zorgan fleet like a thunderbolt. Though outnumbered, the human ships were armed with the most advanced weapons and shielding technology humanity had ever developed. Knox had no intention of fighting fair, he would use every advantage, every dirty trick in the book, to crush the enemy. The battle was joined, and the void lit up with the fire of 1,000 suns. Lasers and missiles crisscrossed the void, ships exploding in silent fireballs. The Zorgans fought with the ferocity of cornered beasts, but they were no match for Knox's tactical brilliance and the sheer determination of his crews. One by one, the alien ships were shattered, until the remnants of their fleet fled, broken and bloodied. As news of Knox's victory spread, the human colonies erupted in celebration. The Admiral broadcast images of the shattered Zorgan fleet across every frequency, a warning to the galaxy of what awaited any who dared threaten humanity. On New Terra, Jack and Anna heard the news and wept with relief, knowing that their deliverance was at hand. But even as they celebrated, they knew their fight was far from over. The Zorgans still held the surface of New Terra, and they would not relinquish it easily. Sarge gathered the survivors, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. "We've hurt them," he growled, "but now it's time to drive them off our world for good. It's time to show them what happens when they mess with humanity." Under cover of night, the Resistance struck, a daring raid on a Zorgan supply depot. Jack and Anna fought side by side, their weapons blazing, as they stormed the alien compound. The Zorgans, caught off guard, fell before the human assault, and soon the depot was in flames, its precious supplies destroyed or captured. It was a resounding victory, but one that would come with consequences. On the Zorgan homeworld, Emperor Kordak seethed with rage as he received news of the defeat. His advisors cowered as he stalked the halls of his palace, his eyes burning with hatred. "The humans dare defy us," he roared, his voice shaking the very walls. "They dare strike against the mighty Zorgan Empire? So be it. If they crave war, then war they shall have. We will crush them, grind them to dust beneath our heels. We will make them suffer as no species has ever suffered before. And when we are done, the very memory of humanity will be a whisper of terror, a warning to all who would oppose us." Kordak's decree went out to every corner of the Zorgan Empire, a call to total war. Shipyards and factories kicked into overdrive, churning out new ships and weapons. Armies of millions were marshaled, prepared to drown the human worlds in blood. The Zorgans were a race forged in conflict, and they would not rest until humanity was exterminated, wiped from the face of the galaxy. And so the stage was set for a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the universe. Humanity, once the undisputed masters of the stars, now faced an enemy that sought nothing less than their total annihilation. But in the face of this threat, they did not cower or retreat. They stood tall, united in their determination to fight, to survive, to make the Zorgans rue the day they ever dared to awaken humanity's wrath. The war had begun, and it would be a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. It would be a war of survival, a war of vengeance, a war that would echo through the ages. And it would be a war that humanity could not afford to lose, for the stakes were nothing less than the fate of their entire species. In the depths of space, Admiral Knox stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at the stars. He knew the road ahead would be long and bloody, that countless lives would be lost before the end. But he also knew that humanity would never surrender, never bow before the alien threat. They would fight, and they would win, no matter the cost. For this was more than just a war. It was a reckoning, a chance to show the galaxy what humanity was truly made of. And Knox would lead the charge, a beacon of hope and defiance in the face of the coming darkness. The Zorgans had started this war, but humanity would finish it, and the universe would tremble before their might. As the forces of humanity and the Zorgan Empire clashed across the stars, the true scope of the conflict began to unfold. Admiral Knox, his fleet bolstered by reinforcements from Earth and the colonies, launched a series of daring attacks deep into Zorgan space. His objective was clear: to strike at the heart of the enemy's war machine, to cripple their ability to wage war before they could bring their full might to bear. The Zorgans, for their part, responded with a fury that shook the heavens. Emperor Kordak, consumed by his hatred for humanity, threw every resource at his disposal into the fight. Vast armadas of warships, each one bristling with weapons, surged forth from Zorgan shipyards and rallied around their emperor's banner. Kordak himself took to the field, leading his troops from the front, his presence an inspiration to his warriors and a terror to his foes. On the besieged colony worlds, the human resistance fought on with grim determination. Jack, Anna, and their comrades on New Terra launched raid after raid against the Zorgan occupiers, striking from the shadows and fading away before the enemy could respond. They sabotaged supply lines, ambushed patrols, and generally made life a living hell for the invaders. But the Zorgans were not so easily dislodged. For every blow the resistance struck, the aliens responded with brutal reprisals, targeting civilians and destroying entire cities in retribution. The once thriving colony became a blasted wasteland, a hellscape of rubble and ash where only the strong and the desperate survived. As the war raged on, both sides began to feel the strain. Losses mounted on both sides, ships and soldiers consumed in the unrelenting furnace of battle. But neither side showed any sign of backing down, their resolve hardened by the bitter depths of their hatred. The galaxy held its breath, watching in awe and terror as the two mighty empires collided, knowing that the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. And through it all, a question began to echo across the stars: how far would humanity go to ensure its survival? What depths would they plumb, what sacrifices would they make, to emerge victorious in this war for the ages? Only time would tell, as the conflict raged on, unabated and unrelenting, towards its inevitable, bloody conclusion. In the halls of power on Earth, the war effort consumed every waking moment. Political leaders and military strategists huddled in conference rooms, poring over maps and reports, seeking any advantage that could turn the tide of battle. They knew that the stakes could not be higher, the very survival of humanity hung in the balance. But even as they planned and plotted, a new threat emerged from the shadows. In the heart of the Zorgan Empire, a team of scientists labored under the watchful eye of Emperor Kordak himself. They were developing a weapon, a biological agent tailored to target human DNA. If unleashed, it would spread like wildfire through the human worlds, leaving only death in its wake. News of this vile weapon reached the ears of human intelligence, and a wave of horror swept through the halls of power. Admiral Knox, his face grim, vowed that the Zorgans would not succeed in this monstrous endeavor. He assembled a team of his best operatives, men and women skilled in infiltration and sabotage, and tasked them with a mission of the utmost importance: to find and destroy the Zorgan bioweapon before it could be deployed. As Knox's team raced against time, the war raged on with renewed intensity. In the Ghost Veil Nebula, a region of space known for its treacherous, swirling gases, a massive battle erupted between human and Zorgan fleets. The nebula's interference played havoc with sensors and communications, turning the engagement into a chaotic brawl where death could come from any quarter. In the heart of the maelstrom, Captain Jenna Davis, Knox's protégé and one of humanity's most brilliant tactical minds, led a daring flanking maneuver. Her ships, sleek and deadly, slipped through the nebula's murky tendrils and fell upon the Zorgan rear like wolves among sheep. The alien line buckled and then shattered under the onslaught, the once proud Zorgan ships reduced to drifting hulks and expanding clouds of debris. It was a resounding victory, a bright spot in a war that had seen precious few. But even as Davis and her crew celebrated, they knew that their triumph was but a brief respite. The Zorgans would regroup, would come again with even greater numbers and firepower. And somewhere out there, in the depths of enemy space, a biological doomsday clock was ticking down towards zero. On New Terra, Jack, Anna, and the remnants of the human resistance were locked in their own desperate struggle. They had received word that the Zorgans were preparing to evacuate the planet, to withdraw their forces through a heavily defended spaceport. The resistance fighters knew that they could not allow the aliens to escape with the resources and technology they had plundered from the colony. But to attack the spaceport was to court almost certain death. The Zorgans had turned the facility into a fortress, bristling with gun emplacements and patrolled by their most elite troops. To assault such a stronghold with the ragtag band of the resistance seemed like madness. Yet Jack, his eyes hard with determination, knew that they had no choice. If the Zorgans were allowed to withdraw unmolested, it would only prolong the war, leading to countless more deaths on both sides. The resistance had to act, even if it meant sacrificing everything they had left. In a series of tense, hushed meetings, a plan began to take shape. It was a desperate gambit, a last roll of the dice by a people with nothing left to lose. They would infiltrate the spaceport, posing as Zorgan collaborators, and then strike from within when the enemy least expected it. Many would die, that was certain. But if they could cripple the Zorgan evacuation, it would be a blow from which the invaders might never recover. As the resistance fighters made their final preparations, checking weapons and rehearsing their roles, Anna pulled Jack aside. In her eyes, he saw the same fear that gnawed at his own heart, the same grim resolve to see this through to the end. "We might not come back from this," she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. Jack nodded, his jaw set. "I know. But we have to try. For all those we've lost, for all those who are still fighting, we have to try." And so, as the sun set over the ruined landscape of New Terra, a band of heroes set out on a mission from which many would not return. They went to face their destiny, to strike a blow for freedom against the darkness of oppression. They went to remind the Zorgans, and the galaxy at large, of the indomitable spirit of humanity, a spirit that would not be broken, no matter the odds. In that moment, as they marched towards the jaws of hell, they were more than just soldiers or resistance fighters. They were the embodiment of hope, the living flame of defiance against the encroaching night. And though they might fall, their sacrifice would ignite a blaze that would light the way for all those who came after, a beacon of courage that would shine across the stars for generations to come. In the aftermath of the spaceport battle, the resistance on New Terra found itself reinvigorated, their ranks swelling with new recruits eager to strike back against the Zorgan invaders. Anna, her medical skills more valuable than ever, worked tirelessly to tend to the wounded and bolster the spirits of the fighters. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Zorgan Empire, the news of the defeat at New Terra spread like wildfire. Emperor Kordak, his rage knowing no bounds, ordered a redoubling of the efforts to complete the bioweapon. He demanded progress reports daily, threatening dire consequences for any delay. The Zorgan scientists, already laboring under immense pressure, found their work complicated by the growing unrest within the Empire itself. Many Zorgans, upon hearing of the string of human victories, began to question the wisdom of the war, wondering if they had underestimated the tenacity of their foe. Kordak responded to these doubts with characteristic brutality, ordering the execution of any who dared to question his rule. But even as he tightened his grip on power, he could feel the foundations of his empire beginning to crack. Out in the stars, Admiral Knox's fleet continued its campaign of hit-and-run attacks, striking at Zorgan supply lines and communications hubs. Knox himself led a daring raid on a major Zorgan shipyard, dealing a crippling blow to the Empire's ability to replenish its losses. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Knox, leading the charge, was gravely wounded in the battle. As he lay dying on the bridge of his ship, he entrusted the command of the fleet to Captain Davis, his final words a rallying cry to all who would carry on the fight. Davis, her heart heavy with grief but her resolve unshakable, took up the mantle of leadership. She knew that the road ahead would be harder than ever, that the Zorgans, backed into a corner, would lash out with unimaginable fury. But she also knew that she carried the hopes and dreams of all humanity with her, and that failure was not an option. As the fleets clashed and the resistance fought on, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. The Zorgan bioweapon, though nearing completion, had not yet been deployed. There was still a chance, however slim, to end this war before the unthinkable could happen. But to seize that chance would require a sacrifice beyond any that had come before. It would demand that humanity face its darkest hour with unwavering courage and unbreakable unity. The final battle was coming, and with it, the fate of the galaxy itself would be decided. The end was near, and all sides could feel it. The Zorgan bioweapon was on the move, being transported to a secret launch facility deep within their territory. Captain Davis, upon receiving this intel, knew that she had to act fast. She gathered her fleet and set out to intercept the weapon, knowing that failure would mean the end of all she held dear. On New Terra, Jack, still recovering from his wounds but driven by an unquenchable fire, rallied the resistance for one final push. They would strike at the heart of the Zorgan occupation, drawing their forces away from the bioweapon and buying precious time for Davis and her fleet. It was a gamble, a desperate play against impossible odds. But it was also their only hope. As Davis's ships raced through the stars, the resistance struck. They hit the Zorgan command center with everything they had, a maelstrom of fire and fury that lit up the night sky. The aliens, caught off guard, fought back with the ferocity of cornered beasts, but the human fighters would not be denied. In space, Davis closed in on the Zorgan transport carrying the bioweapon. She knew that she could not destroy it outright, for the risk of the agent being released was too great. Instead, she would have to board the ship and secure the weapon herself. It was a mission from which she might not return, but Davis did not hesitate. With a select team of her best fighters, she breached the Zorgan vessel, plunging into a desperate, close-quarters battle with the alien defenders. Back on New Terra, Jack and his comrades fought on, even as the Zorgan counterattack threatened to overwhelm them. They bought time with blood, each fallen human a hero whose sacrifice would be remembered for generations. In the end, it came down to a single moment, a final confrontation in the heart of the Zorgan ship. Davis, battered and bloodied but unbroken, stood face to face with the bioweapon, the fate of the galaxy in her hands. What happened next would be the stuff of legend, a tale passed down through the ages as a testament to the courage and resolve of the human spirit. For in that moment, against all odds, Captain Davis triumphed. The bioweapon was secured, the Zorgan transport crippled. And on the surface of New Terra, as word of the victory spread, the resistance let out a cry of joy that shook the very heavens. But even as they celebrated, they knew that the war was not yet won. The Zorgan Empire, though reeling, was not yet defeated. There would be more battles to come, more sacrifices to be made. But for now, in this moment of triumph, humanity allowed itself to hope. They had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious, their spirit unbroken, their resolve unshakable. The galaxy would never be the same, for it had borne witness to the indomitable will of a species that refused to bow to tyranny, no matter the cost. And so, as the ships returned and the heroes were welcomed with open arms, a new chapter began. A chapter of rebuilding, of healing, and of preparation for the challenges yet to come. The Zorgan Empire still loomed, a shadow over the galaxy, but humanity would face it as they always had, together, united, and unafraid. The war was not over, but a message had been sent, a declaration to the stars themselves. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would rage, they would fight, and they would prevail, no matter the odds. For they were the guardians of light in a galaxy of darkness, and their fire would never be extinguished. In the days that followed, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the Zorgan Empire would respond to this stunning defeat. But the response, when it came, was not what anyone expected. On the Zorgan homeworld, in the halls of power, a coup was underway. A faction of military leaders, long disillusioned with Emperor Kordak's rule, had seized their moment. They saw the writing on the wall, the inevitable defeat that awaited them if they continued on their current path. In a swift and bloody operation, they overthrew the emperor, ending his reign of madness and terror. The new leaders, pragmatic and calculating, immediately sued for peace, offering to withdraw from all occupied human territories in exchange for an end to hostilities. The human leadership, surprise and caution warring in their hearts, agreed to the terms. The war had exacted a terrible toll, and the promise of peace, however tenuous, was too tempting to resist. And so, as the ships of war were called home and the soldiers laid down their arms, a new era began. It was an era of rebuilding, of healing the wounds of a shattered galaxy. On New Terra and 100 other worlds, the work of reconstruction began, led by those who had fought and bled in the war. Jack and Anna, heroes of the resistance, found themselves at the forefront of this effort. They worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost, to create a future worth fighting for. And though the scars of war would never fully fade, they knew that they had been part of something greater than themselves, a struggle that had reforged the galaxy in the fires of courage and sacrifice. Across the stars, the story of humanity's stand against the Zorgan spread, becoming legend. It was a tale of defiance in the face of annihilation, of hope in the darkest of hours. And it served as a warning, a reminder to all who would threaten the peace and freedom of the galaxy. For the humans, once thought to be weak and divided, had shown their true strength. They had stood together, had fought as one, and had emerged victorious against an enemy that had sought to exterminate them. They had proven, beyond any doubt, that they were a force to be reckoned with. And as the galaxy moved forward, as new alliances were forged and old wounds were healed, the legacy of this great struggle lived on. It was a legacy of unity, of courage, and of the unbreakable spirit of a species that had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. The war was over, but the story of humanity was just beginning. And all who looked upon the stars knew that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had, together, unafraid, and ready to fight for the light in a galaxy of darkness.